Master Modes, the controversial flight model adjustment implemented to Star Citizen in 3.23, is being dismantled and moved into an already existing system, simplifying flight in Star Citizen. Weapons are being made available to players at all times, all normal ship flight is being limited to around current SCM speeds, Quantum Boost is going to become an integral part of getting around, and crafting is quickly climbing its way to become the most important part of Star Citizen. This is my own opinion or interpretation of the upcoming changes to Star Citizen's flight model. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. Master Modes are dead, mostly. See, Master Modes are just two different types of flight. Your functional flight, guns, missiles, mining, scanning, salvage, combat, tractor beaming, and other utilities, and navigation flight, quantum travel, scanning, and eventually quantum boost. But each of those things I named are operator modes within the Master Modes framework. So overall, you have 2 Master Modes with 8+ operator modes between them. Look at SCM. At its core, this mode is mainly known for allowing weapons and shields. Using the guns and missile operator mode, you could do this. Now, you can freely use your guns in any operator mode, including Quantum, without needing to determine the SCM Master Mode as well, essentially stripping away the whole need for the SCM Master Mode. On the other hand, Nav Mode at its core was known for travel speeds of around 1200 meters per second and quantum travel. Ignoring the scanning operator mode, you'll now freely use quantum travel as its own operator mode, with quantum boost possibly getting its own as well, essentially stripping away the Nav Master Mode. Apparently, a big part of getting rid of this was actually because many players would fly too fast in this mode and crash. So now quantum boost, not following the same rules due to the nature of the Alcubierre drive, can make sure to stop you point blank when you arrive at your destination so you don't crash into space stations. I think this is a slippery slope limiting gameplay like this because the learning curve on an unfinished game is too high, to be honest, and making big changes to fundamental parts of the game based on that learning curve during development could be bad for the game. And I really wish there was still some way for players who want to fly fast around these locations to still do so, maybe for like a fine or something, but what's done seems to be done for now, and we'll see how it works. I just think this is a silly reason to cite for speed limitations in this way. Speaking of limitations, some from the Master Mode system will remain. I did say Master Modes is only kinda dead, after all. As you power up your quantum drive, presumably through the operator mode you use for that travel, your shield will actually still be disabled. Your weapons, as I mentioned earlier, will always be available though. This gives some more freedom of choice back to the players, and more ability to defend yourself even as you're fleeing. Particularly, this is good for ships that have turrets. We will have to see though how a change like that works in the real game, but I think this is something many players are going to be happy about. Another limitation that will remain, which is likely to get the opposite reaction, is a speed limit on all general flight modes to whatever what you'd imagine SCM speeds are now could mean. I assume that means around 250 to 300 meters per second, but I genuinely hope it is closer to 300 and 400 meters per second, but we will see. Either way, while many complaints over the last year were screaming about Master Modes, I do think many people actually had problems with the lower flight speeds we had gotten along with them. So, getting rid of flight modes that many exclaimed for, it might not be what many players actually wanted. What this change has done is simplified flight by removing that extra layer of functionality in Master Modes and focused on a single method of switching modes in your ship through operator modes. One that's already existed, as Missile Operator Mode was introduced in 3.14 back in 2021, and then other modes were created in unison. It's also almost the way things have always already worked. Essentially, if you took the flight model we had before Master Modes was implemented, limited all ship speeds down to SCM level that we know now, and introduced power management through engineering, you would have what we're getting now. It is a bummer that it took this long for them to go full circle for this change, and I genuinely think that they're making this change a bit too early considering they had struck out on a path and seemed pretty set on it. But it'll be interesting to see if this works and whether or not in the long term the players are happy they decided to go back on what they were trying to do. I honestly think trying to do all of this, restricting it through natural power needs and engineering gameplay, would have been a balancing nightmare, so I kind of give them a pass on not trying to make that happen there, but losing the ability to fly fast is going to be a real bummer if it does end up being what happens, especially low flying in atmosphere and around asteroids. Now, this isn't super clear. I'm not sure if there is any way we will be able to fly at those high speeds we love outside of using quantum boost, which last we saw is a pretty particular kind of travel method. To be honest, there are several things that aren't super clear about this in terms of specifics, which leads me to believe that we are still in the early talks of this getting implemented. As much as I wanted quantum boost in the game this year, which you can see all the benefits of in the video up in the corner there, it's not coming soon. When it does though, it'll be what we use to get around from planet to orbit to point of interest in the distance for exploration. This feature is actually extremely important, and they've been teasing it here and there lately to show its updated capabilities, like using it to get from ground level all the way out to orbit, to travel in any direction without a beacon, and to quickly move as a group in local space. Between the use of this mode and whatever other potential high-speed flight options we see, and the likely removal of any waits or stalls in between selecting this mode and others, Master Modes is dead. But its philosophy, its whole point, the struggle to slow down combat speeds, which was laid out back in 2022, discussed in 2023, and released in 2024, it remains. Speeds will remain slow, and players will have to find other ways to outdo their opponents. But this is where things take a twist with this update. The real kicker of the new flight system is that it will be largely based around player crafting. Back at CitizenCon 2024, crafting was revealed in detail across many different facets. How it would work with bases, ships, and space stations, power management, resource extraction, material quality, fabricator variety, and item and ship tiers. 1 through 3 for items and 1 through 5 for ships will determine various baseline statistics for items, strength, durability, and value, to name a few. This will create a more diverse player-to-player trading system, economy, and loot pool. It'll allow gameplay to overtake store-bought items, which are all going to be the lowest tier, and most importantly, it'll allow ships to fly at speeds higher than the baseline being set with the changes that we've discussed today.
Is crafting. So crafting will allow you to upgrade your ship and to tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you want to have combat at higher speeds, if you have a tier 5 ship and you have the best thrusters and you've specialized, you've bought an interceptor ship, that will be more applicable to those types of ships. So that gives people options to choose, like, I want to have this type of gameplay versus this type of gameplay.
Just like that, crafting overtakes engineering and even to some extent components as one of the most important gameplay mechanics in the entire game for ship progression. With everything we have already seen, it was quickly becoming the cornerstone of Star Citizen, but this pretty much seals the deal. In just the last 2 months, crafting has gone from an interesting idea in Star Citizen to one of the most important parts of the whole game. Now, to be clear, I'm not convinced that this crafting move plus the quantum boost for faster speeds will fix the major problems that people have had with the flight model. I'm gonna wait to see more info on this before really trying to discern how this affects the game overall, but I'm wary of the details surrounding the speeds especially. I really can't tell if they are completely removing those faster speeds of 1,000+ meters per second outside of crafting and upgrading, or not. And that's also a key point. This includes upgrades you can make to your ship. So that game loop that we saw at CitizenCon, meant to detail the drive of a normal player in Star Citizen 1.0, one in which you work contracts to earn a ship that you then use to mine resources, to make money, to buy a blueprint for another ship that can take you on the raid that you've had your eye on to get the loot that you've wanted. Now throughout that sequence, over the course of days, weeks, or months, you can upgrade your ship to improve the experience and gain the upper hand on the fights you're having against gangs, pirates, and other NPC enemies. With components also having tiers, there's gonna be a ton of customization options in just performance alone, all thanks to crafting. At least this is what they want to do. No matter how this goes, the balance is going to be hefty, and it's likely the stats, guns, and ways that ships works are going to be changing quite a bit throughout the years to account for all this, so be ready. There's no knowing when these changes may land. I highly doubt they're going to be in 4.0. As much as I'd been hoping for a surprise quantum travel edition in the update, it's not going to happen. So hopefully we see this next step sometime next year and they can make it work for then. Because this game needs to find solid footing to move forward on, and these big flight model changes isn't giving anybody a lot of confidence. I also feel Master Modes was never given enough time to develop based on the feedback it was getting and find good compromises. I was waiting to see what 4.0 might bring in terms of updates to that system. Unfortunately, jump points in engineering took a lot of the time from the devs that were working on that system this year, and so we just weren't able to see them iterate on it fast enough and get in those major changes, and I don't think we'll ever know what they were actually going to be. Either way, I hope this was a good update for you on the state of things. If you're looking for more detail, there's a much more in-depth video about it over on my second channel, Space Tomato 2. Generally, I'm posting more often over there and dishing out some more news, info, reactions, and my podcasts, of course, with weekly guests. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I will catch you in the next.